I finally found where all the Draco Slayer and the one Flaunderies list of the format have ended up for regionals. Of course, 34% of you have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so we can climb up to 110,000. So what's going on here with this regional breakdown out of Tinley Park? Well, tier most represented deck in the room. That's not going to be a surprise to any of you. Now, the interesting things here. We had 2 Sprite duelists in Top Cut. Now, Sprite and tier from every other regional that we have seen so far has honestly been a pretty easy tale, where you see these two battling it out across the top cuts, and you've seen maybe 1 or 2 events where Sprite has inverted on tier. It depends on where it is, but we are seeing multiple levels of success here across the board for that. So that's kind of the standardized metagame. Now, this event had double Draco Slayer in its top cut, which is very, very interesting to me. I have not seen a lot of Draco Slayer in top 8s as of late, but it's definitely been a top 16, competitor. But Pendulum finally getting the chance to step on up here and actually do what it needs to do to grind through this competition, which is actually very nice. And one of the Pendulum decks got 2nd place of all things, so that's an amazing finish for this. And then, of course, the second one finished in 5th place, so both exceedingly high places here for that. Now, there was one Flaunderies player, and they got 8th place. Now, whatever hold that Flaunder has on the format right now, it is really dropping off, and it's kind of sad to see the rapid change of the format here, with Flaunder, at least, for the very early stages of the format, getting pushed down relatively low. So I guess for now, we'll have to wait and see if Flaunder maintains any sort of top cut representation as we go forward here, but how the mighty have fallen, that's for sure. All right, let's pass on over to top deck list now. Okay, the first list we actually have for you is going to be a list playing Chaos Emperor here for searchability. Okay, I hadn't actually considered playing this in the Draco Slayer deck, but you know what? I mean, enough Bysteals, enough Light and Darks, and you're good to go, effectively. That's a very interesting idea, and it looks like it worked out relatively well for this. Now, do keep in mind that a lot of these Draco Slayer builds that you will see usually will have some sort of field spell attached to them. This one's just caring about the Sky Iris. It's usually Necro Valley I see, but it is kind of nice to see a little bit of a change of pace there from that. We're also only playing 1 Beyond the Pendulum here. It's going to give you access to actually play Ptolemaeus, Stelteros, and Constellar Knight Diamond here, which are all interesting inclusions into this deck. So it's a much different approach to the already established ideas that a lot of players have via the Pendulum deck so far, but it is kind of nice to see that line of thinking change here, to kind of diversify things, to say the least. I think so many people get set up in their own notions that they need to play the deck in a certain line, and they kind of get afraid to test things, but Chaos Emperor is not something I've seen. I've seen Monkey Board kind of starting to show up as like a thing that they were trying to do with this. Necro Valley has been, a big staple for this deck for a lot of the early stages here in the format, and it is kind of nice to see, once again, the diversity starting to show through the cracks here. I also like the fact that we are seeing the Guiding Ariadne here with, the Solemn Judgment here to detour and punish the opponent. I really love the fact when my cards become free to play. Next up here is going to be some basic stuff. You have pretty much already seen a Shizu tier and how this deck has kind of molded into one of the more basic things this format. Well, Herald of Orange Light getting the reduction down to 1 here. It's kind of interesting to see how players are going about it. I also see we are playing a Diviner of the Herald here. Diviner is not something that I've seen a lot of, or really even consideration for this format, because most players are just like, not really much of a need for this. We're playing 2 Scream with the 1 Heartbeat in the main deck. We are not playing the 2nd Heartbeat. We are also playing the one Agito. Agito still has been deemed one of the worst cards for this deck, which is absolutely hilarious to me. And of course, we're doing one Crime and two Solic in the main deck. So some people main or side the Solic, or excuse me, the Crime, but I think that getting away with that's fine. And then of course, the Zombie World, Necroworld Banshee shenanigans that we've been seeing as of late. Next up here is another version of this. Hi, my name is King of the Swamp. How are you? Little things I will note about getting the ability to play with Grapha here. It is definitely... It's a power card, especially when you can turn it into discard a tier card from your hand during your opponent's turn, so you can go ahead and, you know, get another fusion summon to set up something else. That is actually pretty interesting at the end of the day. So depending on, you know, how your build shapes up, you know, what value you're going to get out of this, I do think that Grapha did open up some interesting lines of play for this, especially, you know, after we lose some possibility of some sort of this package here. I think that the Grapha will definitely remain one of the little key aspects that you can get away with this deck. Little cute things for 500 to definitely make this deck seem a little bit more interesting. Next up here, we have our other Draco Slayer list. Now, holy moly, the differences between these two lists are night and day. This list actually focusing on the Astrograph here. I see that we have way more extensions here. So we have the Dark Ruler No Mores in the main deck. There's the Necro Valley that I talked about that we've kind of have seen move in and be, you know, a little bit more of a norm. And then, of course, Sky Iris. This card's busted in this deck. And then, of course, the Secret Village. Now, Secret Village has been quite an interesting topic for this deck because you can just get free access to it, and then you're like, oh yeah, by the way, slap this bad boy on the field after you've set up your entire field. Well, now your Dark Ruler No More, you know, protected. So a lot of really interesting little niches that you get with this deck here to kind of cover your bases because of the inclusions with this stuff. But I am very, very, very happy to see more and more pendulums shining here. Next up is our Sprite list. Now, I've said this a lot, but Sprite's pretty much been perfected at this point in the format. Your, I guess, real decision-making will come down into how you want to build your side deck. And, of course, I do see two of our former good cards. I know a lot of people will main deck Gamma Burst and the Double Cross, but for this format, they've been seeing way less play in the main deck. These are just cards you're like, oh, if I need to OTK my opponent, I can bring in Gamma Burst. If I need, like, the Change of Heart effect for this, I can bring it in. It's better to have them in the side as like option trees in case you need them. You know, buy steals might not be good for a match. I've got to say this out. Talents aren't doing so good. You board appropriately based on what you're given via the matchups, and it all should work out for you. I also love the fact we have good old End of Anubis here, and good old Tetsudo Irad Newman actually doing their job here. Honestly, outside of that, there's not really much to say about Sprite. Like I said, the deck's pretty much wrapped itself up and has been relatively figured out. Next up here is Adventure Sprite. All right, now this is a little bit more my fancy in terms of changing things up a little bit. We're still main decking the One Smasher. Some of these builds have actually kind of messed around with reducing the ratios for Rite of Armesia and Water Enchantress. I've seen some 2-2 packages. You kind of do with that what you will. This build is fine, I think, because we're already playing the 45. And then, of course, there's the Gamma Burst in the side deck for the OTK. We're also side decking a Mannequin Cat here as well. Okay. And then there's that End of Anubis that we saw with the other build. So this build is sharing a couple of ideas between the two, which I think is absolutely fine. Outside of that, there's the Ninja Shadow Mosquito. This card is so hilarious that... I love the fact that it just became a tech choice here. And then last but not least, here is our 8th place list, playing the Smorg package with Flaunderies. And they did bring up the fact that the package of this was actually really good. And to be fair, a lot of people have kind of tossed this package aside, and they're like, we don't really need the Smorg stuff anymore. With the loss of Mystic Mine, I think it is worth considering at this point. We're also not main decking the Necro Valley. We actually opted to play the one-dimensional fissure here, and it looks like that worked out for us over the potential loss of, you know, the extra field spell. But I think that that's perfectly fine at the end of the day here. Also, Sidon rolls 1 Cosmic. Extra deck, Virus Swordsman. Extra deck is just kind of resourced out, but not really much else too crazy to say about the Tinley Park Regional Breakdown, but that is everything that we have, or at least we have seen for this top cut. So what do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.